Okay, so in 2013, Professor Brian Garner, who is an American lawyer and an academic, published a rather controversial article for the American Bar Association entitled Why Lawyers Can't Write. And in this scathing article, Garner concludes that while lawyers are the most highly paid rhetoricians in the world, they're also among the most inept wielders of words. So no doubt some of you might find that sentiment a little bit shocking, maybe even a bit insulting. Please stay with me, don't leave. I will explain why Garner reached his conclusion, and I'll also explain why this matters, just in terms of creating a context for what we're going to talk about today. So first of all, Garner reached this conclusion because he felt that law schools, or he blames law schools and argues that law schools inundate students with poorly written, legalese riddled opinions that read like what he calls an over-the-top Marx parody of stiffness and hyperformality. The second reason he points to for the challenges that lawyers face is due to the decreasing writing standards in secondary and higher education generally. So this isn't actually just about lawyers, but it's having a knock-on effect in the use of language. And to be fair, I've also observed this even in my own children in the ways that they are learning the use of language. Furthermore, in his article, he argues that not only are a lot of lawyers quite poor writers, they're harder to teach because lawyers suffer from delusions of grandeur about how amazing their writing skills are. So what a combination. You have people that may not be that great at writing, but are completely convinced that they have no challenges with writing. So you might be interested to learn that Garner is, as well as being a lawyer and an academic, he happens to be the editor-in-chief of Black's Law Dictionary. This is possibly a dictionary that many of you will be familiar with. So his statements are based on real experience, having been a lawyer and having taught and worked with lawyers. Why am I saying all this? Well, I guess as we begin our time together, while some of you might not agree entirely with everything that Garner argues in his article, in my experience, there will definitely be some of you who have logged in today and are wondering why this course is relevant. After all, you passed all your exams at university and at law school. You're now fortunate enough to be able to identify with the great learned profession. So surely you must be a great writer. I mean, hasn't English always been the path to being in the legal profession? Well, as Kimball puts it, lawyers write and speak for a living. They deal in words, the instrument of thought, and surely the greatest of all our inventions. Lawyers make their living drafting agreements, contract pleadings, letters to clients. But if we're honest with ourselves, we don't necessarily always do this in the most simple and succinct manner. As lawyers, and I can say this for myself, we have a fondness for pretentious and sometimes old-fashioned expressions, and we will come to this later in the day. A lot of us will use what others might describe as long, curly, and sometimes coma-inducing sentences, often prefaced with things like herein, hence, and thereafter. And the truth is, we do regard our verbose language, our legalese, as badges of honor to remind ourselves and others of our learnedness. So what's the problem with this? Why is that wrong? Well, as summarized at the bottom of my slide, Professor Kimball says that if lawyers can't write clearly, plainly, and concisely, then they fail to effectively do their job, which is to communicate. Like a carpenter who can't drive a finish nail straight, it's not going to happen. It's just not going. The message is not going to be communicated. And really, I've said all that to say that that is what today's session is all about. It's not just about writing, it's about being effective communicators through the written word. Because think about it, and as Tolu had said at the beginning, if you write something and others don't understand, then what's the point of writing it? So at the outset of today's workshop, I'd like you to remember two principles, and they're the two sentences on the visual on the screen. First principle is content is king. Second principle is clarity matters. And if you fall asleep and take nothing away from the rest of the day, please remember those two things. Content is king and clarity matters. In other words, what you say matters, but moreover, your clarity in communicating that content matters even more. And that's why we're doing this workshop today.